The diamond necklace caught the light like it had been waiting all year for this moment. $15,000 worth of sparkle dangled from Ashley's throat while she squealed like someone had just handed her the crown jewels. Marcus stood there grinning, chest puffed out, soaking in the glow of his wife's delight. "My husband knows how to treat a lady," Ashley cooed, turning her head this way and that so every camera in the room could capture the glint of her new treasure. She was already angling her phone toward the tree for a selfie, her freshly manicured fingers posed just so on the clasp. I knew before the flash even went off that it would be posted online before the wrapping paper hit the floor. I watched from the corner of the couch, smile frozen in place, hands folded neatly in my lap. A mother learns to hide the sting. We practice it the way some women practice piano, daily until the notes come automatically. Then came my turn. Marcus turned, almost like an afterthought, reaching behind the couch for a bag. No ribbon, no bow, just glossy paper with a receipt crumpled at the bottom. He handed it to me with the distracted air of a man who'd already given away his best. Inside was a scarf, wool, gray, the kind you'd find tossed on the discount rack near the register. Ashley leaned forward, glanced at it, and gave a quick shrug before shoving it back into the bag. "Oh, that'll keep you warm, I guess," she said, before turning her attention back to her diamond necklace. "If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're tuning in from. Because what I got that Christmas was a reminder, clearer than any diamond. In this house, I had been demoted." Marcus didn't notice my silence, or if he did, he mistook it for gratitude. "Thought you could use something cozy, Mom," he said, already half-turned back toward Ashley, who was busy adjusting the pendant so the diamond fell just right in the hollow of her throat. Cozy. That was the word he used after I spent 35 years raising him, patching skinned knees, working double shifts so he could go to college, covering his first mortgage payment when he and Ashley were in over their heads. Cozy. I smiled. Because that's what mothers do. We smile while our hearts crack. We smile when the gifts are scraps, while the jewels go to someone else. The rest of the evening blurred into a haze of laughter and clinking glasses. Ashley unboxed perfume, handbags, shoes. Marcus poured her wine, hung on her every word, called her my girl, with a softness I hadn't heard from him in years. When he spoke to me, it was practical, clipped. "Mom, can you pass the rolls? Mom, did you bring the pie?" As though I were the hired help who'd wandered into family photos by mistake. The scarf itched against my skin when I tried it on, its scratchy wool burning like a brand. I folded it neatly, set it aside, and wondered if anyone would notice if I simply vanished into the cold. They didn't. When the dishes were cleared and Ashley was parading through the living room, showing the necklace to Marcus's co-workers who had dropped by, I slipped my coat on. No one asked where I was going. No one followed me to the door. Outside, the night was sharp, the air so cold it stung my lungs. Christmas lights blinked cheerfully from every porch. I walked to my car alone, scarf clutched in one hand, keys in the other. As the engine turned over, I glanced back at the glowing windows. Inside, my son's laughter carried out into the night, mingling with Ashley's shrieks of delight. For them, it was the perfect Christmas. For me, it was the clearest message I'd ever received. I pulled the car into gear, my jaw tight. They thought they'd given me a gift. What they'd given me was clarity. At home, I set the scarf on the counter beside the pie Ashley had refused to serve because it didn't match the aesthetic. Both sat there, untouched, unwanted. I stared at them until my chest stopped aching and something colder, sharper, took root. If you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever been pushed aside like your years of sacrifice meant nothing, you'll understand what I felt in that moment. It wasn't sorrow. Not anymore. It was resolve. I turned out the kitchen light and climbed the stairs, the house quiet around me. I knew I wouldn't sleep, not with the itch of that scarf still burning on my skin. And I was right. I didn't sleep. Instead, I lay awake, replaying every moment, every slight, every smirk from Ashley, every dismissive shrug from Marcus. By dawn, one thought pulsed through me with the steady tick of the clock on my wall. They thought they could hand me scraps and I'd stay quiet, but by morning, their perfect little world would start to unravel. The house was too quiet when I came home that night. Funny how silence can be louder than laughter when it's laced with disappointment. I hung my coat, set the wool scarf on the counter beside the untouched pie, and made myself a cup of tea I didn't even want. The steam fogged my glasses as I sat at the kitchen table staring at nothing. You'd think after all these years I'd be used to it. The small humiliations, the sideways glances, the way Ashley made it clear I was more of a guest than a mother in my own son's life. But the necklace was different. That glittering chain around her throat wasn't just jewelry. It was a declaration, a diamond flag planted right in the middle of my family. I thought about the years when Marcus was small, when his Christmas mornings were built out of sacrifice. Double shifts at the hospital, a second mortgage we barely survived, his father and I quietly wrapping toys we'd bought with grocery money. He never knew. We never told him. We wanted him to believe in magic, not in overdue bills. And now, here we were. All my years of magic boiled down to a scarf with the tag. Still on. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're tuning in from. Because tell me, what would you have done in my place? Sit there like a fool while she jingled her diamonds, or walk out with what little dignity you had left? I pushed the tea away. Bitter. Too bitter, even for me. I gathered my bag to put it away in the closet, and that's when I noticed it. Heavier than usual. Odd. I set it down and rummaged inside, moving my keys, my wallet, a crumpled tissue. And then I froze. There, tucked at the bottom, was a folder I didn't recognize. Slim, with the corner sticking out as if it had been shoved in hastily. I hadn't packed this. I pulled it out, heart tapping against my ribs. The cover was blank, but inside was my name. At first I thought it was junk mail or some bank fluke, but no. The document was clear, typed neatly in black ink. Power of attorney. My name signed at the bottom, except it wasn't my signature. Not really. Close enough to fool someone who didn't know me. But I knew. The loops in the Y were wrong. The dot over the I was a circle. I've never dotted my I's with circles. It was a forgery, plain and simple. My hands trembled as I turned the page. Ashley's name sat there, bold as brass, listed as the designated agent. In other words, control over everything I owned. My house, my savings, Tom's pension. The scarf itched at my throat again. For a long minute, I just sat there staring at the paper. The kitchen clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. My tea went cold. Ashley. This wasn't about diamonds or scarves. This wasn't about family favoritism or Instagram posts. This was about power, control. She wasn't satisfied with Marcus's money. No, she had her eyes on mine. I thought back to little comments she'd made over the months. Harmless at the time. I'd brushed them off. This house is so big for just one person, don't you think? Estate planning is important. You don't want the state making decisions for you. Marcus and I just want to make sure you're taken care of. Taken care of? Right. Like a horse that's led to pasture before it's put down. My fingers tightened around the folder. Rage pulsed in me like heat from a furnace. But underneath that, something sharper. Clarity. If Ashley thought she could erase me with a forged signature, she was more foolish than I'd given her credit for. I slipped the paper back into the folder, carried it to my bedroom, and laid it flat on my desk. Then I took out my phone and snapped picture after picture. Every page, every forged letter. Proof. Because if there's one thing I've learned in 70 years, it's this. Never confront a snake empty-handed. I locked the folder in my desk drawer. Back downstairs, I sat at the table again, scarf still on the counter beside the pie. Both unwanted, both symbols of how far I'd fallen in Marcus's life, but not for long. If you've ever raised a child, sacrificed for him, given him every piece of yourself, only to watch him hand it all to someone else, then you'll understand the steel that settled into me that night. I wasn't just a mother anymore. I was an opponent, and Ashley Chen had no idea what game she'd just started. Sleep never came that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that signature. My name twisted into a stranger's hand. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to the tick of the clock. Each second whispered the same truth. Ashley was not just dismissive, she was dangerous. By dawn, I'd made my decision. I couldn't carry this alone. I pulled out the folder again, flipped through the pages slowly, letting the forged lines burn into my memory. Ashley's handwriting stood out in little notes scribbled in the margins. Check notary. Marcus backup. Careless, like she thought no one would ever see it. That arrogance would be her undoing. After breakfast, I made a call I never thought I'd make. Not to Marcus, certainly not to Ashley. I dialed a number I'd kept tucked in my address book for years. Frank Dwyer, a retired cop turned private investigator. I'd met him once at a church fundraiser. He'd helped a friend of mine track down a scammer who drained her savings. I remembered the steel in his handshake, the kind of man who still carried himself like he had a badge, even in retirement. He picked up on the third ring. His voice was gravel and patience. Dwyer Investigations. Frank, this is Dorothy Williams. We met years ago at St. Mary's. I need your help. There was a pause, then a shift in tone. Professional, alert. Tell me what's going on. So I did. I told him about the Christmas necklace, the scarf, the folder left behind. I told him about the forged signature, the power of attorney with Ashley's name in bold letters. When I finished, there was silence. Then Frank exhaled through his teeth. That's not small, Dorothy. Forging POA documents? That's serious. If it's real, she's trying to take you for everything you've got. I know, I whispered. That's why I called you. I need proof. Real proof. Something Marcus can't ignore even with his blinders on. He agreed to meet me at his office that afternoon. I made copies of the papers, slipped them into a plain envelope, and tucked it under my arm. Driving through the gray December streets, I kept replaying Ashley's words over the past year. We just want to make sure you're comfortable, Dorothy. You don't need to worry about bills. Lies wrapped in honey. She hadn't been planning to care for me. She'd been planning to erase me. Frank's office was a dim room above a laundromat. The walls smelled faintly of detergent and old smoke. He sat behind a battered desk, notebook open, eyes steady. I handed him the envelope. Tell me who she is, I said simply. He flipped through the copies, his brow furrowing deeper with each page. When he looked up, there was no pity in his eyes, only resolve. I'll dig. If she's dirty, I'll find it. And dig he did. The days that followed felt endless. I went through the motions, grocery shopping, paying bills, knitting a scarf I didn't want, while the scarf Marcus gave me sat untouched on the counter, a silent witness. I checked my phone constantly, waiting for Frank's call. It came 4 days later. His voice was sharp, carrying the weight of what he'd uncovered. Dorothy, you'd better sit down. He laid it all out. Years earlier, Ashley had been tied to a fraud scheme in another state. She'd worked for a financial firm where elderly clients mysteriously lost money. Charges had been dropped, lack of evidence, slippery lawyers, but her name was in the filings. A former employer had accused her of borrowing funds, settled quietly, swept under the rug. Most damning, her patterns, always targeting people older than her, charming, manipulative, then quietly siphoning control. Frank emailed me the documents, the court records, even a few photos of Ashley with associates I didn't recognize. As I scrolled through them, my stomach tightened, but not with fear, with vindication. This wasn't jealousy. This wasn't a bitter old woman resentful of her daughter-in-law. This was truth, and truth was the sharpest weapon I had. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, evidence spread before me, The forged power of attorney draft, the court filings, the detective's report. I reached for a plain brown box from the closet, the kind I used for storing old holiday decorations. One by one, I slid the papers inside. No ribbon, no bow, just truth wrapped in cardboard. If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me. What would you have done? Because me, I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to plead. I was going to let Ashley unwrap her own downfall. I closed the box, taped it shut, and set it by the door. By morning, it would be waiting on her porch. Morning came cold and gray, the kind of winter light that makes everything look washed out. I carried the box to my car like it was any other errand, set it on the passenger seat, and drove past houses still twinkling with leftover Christmas cheer. At Marcus and Ashley's, I parked at the end of the block. The street was quiet. Their porch was draped in garlands, bows hanging limp now that the holiday was over. I walked quickly, set the box squarely in front of their door, and knocked once, hard enough to echo, soft enough to sound casual. Then I turned and walked back down the steps, head high, heart pounding. By the time I reached my car, I heard the door creak open. I didn't need to look back. Later, as I sat at my kitchen table with a fresh pot of coffee, the phone rang. I let it go to voicemail. I knew who it was. Because across town, Ashley had found the box. Marcus's ring. Doorbell probably caught her excitement as she bent down, ripping the tape with nails still painted holiday red. She must have thought it was another package from a friend, another trinket to add to her growing collection of luxuries. But the second she saw the papers inside, her face must have drained of color. The scream carried down the block, a high, piercing shriek that made neighbors poke their heads out of curtains and dog walkers pause mid-step. "Marcus!" she wailed. The story reached me later through whispers. Neighbors said she dropped the box, its contents spilling across the porch. Papers fanned out like a deck of cards, photographs sliding into the snow. She scrambled to gather them, her hands shaking so badly she tore one page in half. Marcus rushed to her side, confused, demanding to know what was wrong. He bent down, scooped up a page, froze as his eyes scanned the words. He called her name once, then twice, voice rising. She tried to snatch it away. They argued on the porch in front of the whole neighborhood, Ashley crying, Marcus shouting, papers fluttering around them. All while I sat at my table, stirring sugar into my coffee. Calm, almost serene. If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me what you think was in that box. Because believe me, it wasn't jewelry, it wasn't perfume, it was something far heavier, something Ashley never wanted Marcus to see. I imagined the way her hands trembled, the way her perfect image cracked in front of everyone. For once, she wasn't the elegant wife with the diamond necklace. She was just a woman caught red-handed and she knew it. Marcus's voice must have carried. Neighbors said they heard his anger echo across the street. "What is this, Ashley? Where did this come from?" She sobbed, tried to explain, called it a mistake, old paperwork, lies planted by someone who hated her. But Marcus wasn't buying it. Not this time. The box had done its work. By evening, my phone lit up with his name. I let it ring until the voicemail clicked on. His voice filled the kitchen, tight and suspicious. "Mom, we need to talk. Tomorrow, you, me, and Ashley. Don't make any plans." I deleted the message without listening to the rest, because what Marcus didn't understand yet was that the talking part was over. The box had already spoken. The morning after the box landed on their porch, I could almost feel the storm rolling toward me. The scarf still sat on my counter, a reminder of where all this began. I folded it neatly, set it aside, and waited. At Marcus's house, chaos reigned. Ashley hadn't slept. I knew that without needing to see it. Women like her thrive on control, and the box had ripped it right out of her hands. I pictured her pacing the living room in her silk robe, clutching the papers to her chest, whispering excuses to Marcus. "It's not what it looks like. Someone planted it. Your mother's behind this. She's jealous, Marcus. She always has been. But Marcus wasn't stupid, just blind. He built a pedestal for Ashley so high he hadn't noticed the cracks forming underneath. Now the cracks were widening and he was slipping. Neighbors later told me they heard shouting through the walls that morning. Marcus demanding answers, Ashley sobbing. At one point he stormed outside, phone in hand, pacing the porch. By noon, my own phone rang. His name lit the screen. I let it buzz 3 times before I picked up. Mom. His voice was sharp, strained. Did you drop something at our house yesterday? I blinked at my coffee cup, keeping my voice steady. What do you mean? There was a box on the porch with papers about Ashley. I let out a soft laugh, the kind that could be mistaken for confusion. A box? Marcus, I don't know anything about that. Silence on the line. I could hear Ashley in the background, her voice tight, frantic, whispering like she could steer him through sheer force of will. Mom, Marcus said again, slower this time. It had your name on it. Your name was on some of the papers. A power of attorney. Oh, Marcus, I said gently. You know me. If anyone asked me to sign something like that, I'd come to you first. Always. That much was true. And truth, when used carefully, can cut deeper than lies. Another pause. I could almost see the war in his head, his mother's calm certainty against his wife's shrill denials. Ashley grabbed the phone then, her voice breaking into my ear like shattered glass. Dorothy, this is sick. You're obsessed with me. You've been against me since day one. You probably made those papers yourself just to ruin me. I pulled the receiver away from my ear, stared at it for a long moment, then brought it back. Ashley, I said evenly, if you think anyone in this world believes I know how to forge a legal document, you're giving me far too much credit. Her gasp was sharp, and then the line went dead. I leaned back in my chair, smiling despite myself. That evening, the phone rang again. Marcus, this time, his tone stripped bare. We need to talk, tomorrow. You, me, and Ashley. At your house. I agreed, voice mild, as if it were nothing more than a lunch date. When I hung up, the scarf caught my eye from across the counter. I picked it up, pressed it between my hands. Scratchy, cheap, thoughtless. Funny how something so small could spark a fire this big. If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me, if your child brought you scraps while showering their spouse in diamonds, what would you have done? Because me, I decided it was time to stop being ignored. Ashley thought she could play games with forged papers and buried secrets. Tomorrow, she would learn I'd already read the rule book, and I was playing to win. The next afternoon, the knock came right on time. I opened the door to find Marcus standing stiff in his coat, Ashley clinging to his arm like a drowning woman. Her diamond necklace still glittered at her throat, but her face was pale, eyes rimmed with sleeplessness. Mom, Marcus said. No hug, no smile, just a clipped word, heavy with everything unsaid. Come in, I told them, stepping aside. They sat at my kitchen table, the same place where I'd first found that forged document. The scarf lay folded neatly on the counter, a quiet reminder of where this had started. For a moment, no one spoke. Marcus's hands clenched and unclenched on the table. Ashley finally broke the silence. This has gone far enough, she snapped, voice trembling under its brittle edge. Whatever game you're playing, Dorothy, it stops now. That box was full of lies, fabricated lies. You planted them to poison Marcus against me. I folded my hands in front of me and let her words hang in the air. Then slowly I slid a folder across the table. Ashley flinched as if it were a loaded gun. Why don't we start with this? I said softly. Marcus reached for it before Ashley could, pulling out the first page. His eyes scanned the text, and his jaw tightened. Power of attorney, I explained, drafted with my name but not my hand. Look closely, Marcus. The signature's wrong. You know it as well as I do." Ashley let out a sharp laugh, too loud for the room. "This is ridiculous. Anyone could have faked that. She probably did it herself." But Marcus wasn't laughing. He traced the letters with his finger, his brow furrowing. It does look off." I slid the next page forward, and here. Notes in the margins. "Recognize the handwriting, Marcus?" Ashley's breath hitched. The scribbled words were small but clear. "Check notary, Marcus Backup." He looked up at her, confusion turning to something colder. "Ashley," she sputtered, "it's not mine. She's trying to frame me." I reached into the folder again and pulled out another document. This one stamped with a court seal. And what about this? I laid out the detective's report, copies of court filings from another state. Ashley's name glared up from the page, tied to a fraud case involving an elderly employer. Marcus snatched it, flipping through with growing horror. You were investigated for fraud?" "It was nothing." Ashley's voice cracked. "Baseless accusations, dropped charges. I told you, people were jealous." "Jealous?" My voice sharpened for the first time. "Is that what you call it when money vanishes from old men's accounts? When signatures start appearing that don't belong to them?" Ashley's mouth opened and closed, her words failing. Marcus's face had gone ashen. He set the papers down slowly, as though they were burning his hands. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because it wasn't important," she shot back. "It was years ago, Marcus. It doesn't matter anymore." "It matters," he said flatly. Silence swallowed the room. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator, steady and unyielding. I leaned forward, my voice calm. "She wasn't satisfied with your gifts, Marcus. She wasn't satisfied with your loyalty. She wanted everything. My house, my savings, my name. And she was willing to forge her way into it." Ashley's eyes blazed, but beneath the fire I saw fear. Real fear. "Marcus," I said quietly, "you've been blind, but you're not stupid. Look at her. Look at what she's done." He turned to Ashley, searching her face for the truth she'd buried under diamonds and charm. For the first time, she had no mask left to wear. And in that moment, I knew the box had done more than expose her lies. It had cracked his loyalty wide open. Marcus sat back in his chair, the court papers still spread across the table like broken glass. His knuckles were white where he gripped the edge, as though the wood was the only thing keeping him grounded. Ashley, on the other hand, had come unglued. Her voice pitched higher with every word, tears smearing her mascara into dark streaks. "This is insane," she cried, clutching at Marcus's arm. "You're really going to believe her after everything I've done for you? She's jealous, Marcus. She's always been jealous. She can't stand that you love me more than her." I sat perfectly still, my hands folded, my eyes steady. The scarf still lay on the counter behind me, scratchy and cheap, but in this moment it felt like a trophy. Marcus's voice cracked when he finally spoke. "Ashley, these aren't lies. Your name is on them. Your handwriting is in the margins. These records, these are real. How could you hide this from me?" "I didn't hide anything," she screamed. "They twisted everything. Those charges were dropped. Do you know what it's like to be a woman working in finance? Men will say anything to drag you down." Her excuse might have worked on someone else, but not now, not with evidence staring him in the face. I leaned forward, voice low, sharp as glass. "Men didn't forge my name, Ashley. Men didn't scrawl notes about a notary and my son as your backup plan. That was all you." Ashley slammed her fist on the table, making the papers jump. "You think you're so clever, don't you? Snooping through my things, digging up old dirt, making me look like some kind of monster." I tilted my head. "Monster? I never said that. But it's interesting that's the word you chose." Her eyes burned into me, wild and frantic. She turned back to Marcus, clutching at him again. "Don't let her do this. She'll tear us apart. She's bitter. She's lonely. She hates me because I have what she doesn't. Enough. The word fell from Marcus's lips like a stone dropped in water. It silenced even Ashley. He looked at me then, his face drawn tight, years of loyalty to his wife crashing into the weight of the evidence. "Mom," he said, voice rough, "tell me straight. Do you believe she was trying to take your money? To take control of your life?" I didn't blink. "I don't just believe it, I know it." Ashley gasped. "You can't." "Quiet," Marcus snapped louder this time. His hand slammed down on the papers. "You lied to me. You kept this from me. You used me to get close to her assets. And now," his voice broke, "now I don't even know who you are." Ashley's tears spilled faster, but her fury flared hotter. "Don't you dare take her side over mine, after everything I've given you, after I've been the only one who believed in you." I rose then, slow and deliberate, letting my chair scrape back across the floor. My voice cut through the room, calm but deadly. "You gave him diamonds, Ashley. You gave him laughter and sparkle and all the things money can buy. And what did you give me? Scraps. A scarf you couldn't even bother to wrap properly. And now I see why. Because in your eyes, I was already gone, already erased. Just another old woman you could push aside on your way to the bank." Ashley's face twisted, but she had no retort ready this time. I took a breath, steady. "Marcus, I'm not asking you to choose between us. The evidence already chose. All I'm asking is that you open your eyes and see who's been standing next to you all this time." The silence that followed was thick, choking. Ashley's sobs echoed in it, sharp and ugly. Marcus pressed his hands to his face, then dragged them down slowly, as though peeling away the last of his denial. When he finally looked up, his voice was quiet, trembling. "Ashley, is it true?" And for the first time since I'd known her, Ashley Chen had no answer. For a long moment, the kitchen was nothing but silence. Marcus's question hung in the air like smoke. "Is it true?" Ashley's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came. Her eyes darted from his face to mine, frantic, desperate, hunting for a lifeline that wasn't there. Marcus's hands curled into fists. "My God," he whispered, "all this time, you lied to me. You lied about everything." Ashley lunged forward, grabbing his sleeve. "No, Marcus, listen, please. This is your mother twisting things. She's always hated me, you know that. She planted those papers. She's trying to destroy us." But her voice cracked in the middle, betraying her. He yanked his arm free. "Stop, just stop!" His voice was cold now, stripped of affection. I stayed quiet, letting the silence do the work. Sometimes the hardest blows don't come from shouting. They come from stillness. Marcus gathered the papers with trembling hands, stacking them into a neat pile as if order could make sense of the chaos. "These are going to the police," he said flatly. Ashley's face drained of color. "No, you can't. Marcus, if you do that, it'll ruin everything. Our reputation, our future, me." He shot her a look so sharp it cut her off, mid-sentence. "You ruined it yourself." Her sobs broke then, messy and loud. She tried again to reach for him, but he pushed back his chair and stood. "I trusted you," he said, voice raw, "and you made a fool of me." He turned to me then, eyes weary, ashamed. "Mom, I don't even know what to say." I met his gaze, steady but not unkind. "Then don't say anything yet. Actions will speak louder." He nodded once, jaw set, then stormed out, papers clutched under his arm. Ashley trailed behind him, pleading, her diamond necklace catching the light one last time before the door slammed shut. And just like that, the house was quiet again. I sank into my chair, the weight of it all pressing down, then slowly lifting. On the counter, the scarf still sat folded beside the untouched pie. I picked it up, ran it through my fingers, scratchy, ugly, but no longer a wound. Now, it was a reminder that sometimes Being underestimated is the sharpest weapon of all. I folded the scarf carefully and set it back down. For the first time in weeks, my chest didn't ache. If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me in the comments. What would you have done if you found out your own daughter-in-law was plotting to erase you? As for me, I chose the truth. Not diamonds, not scarves, not silence. Truth. And in the end, it shone brighter than any necklace Ashley ever wore. Because you can cover lies in glitter. You can wrap them in red bows. But when the box is opened, the truth will always cut deeper.